Greetings, everybody. Yes, I'm going to talk a little bit, first of all, to give you a context of who I am, who we are as a centre. Centre for Sustainable Fashion is a University of the Arts research centre, and University of the Arts is Central St Martin's, London College of Fashion, Chelsea, Wimbledon, and London College of Communication, so that's our kind of mother. And as a research centre working in fashion, it's our ambition really to look at ways in which we can create better lives, and for that we think about human and ecological flourishing. And fashion is an amazing place for us to have a point of intervention. It's where we practice those ideas of sustainability and sort of critique fashion through them, because fashion is ubiquitous, it affects all of us, and it's very personal. So I'll tell you a little bit of a story about how we came to be working with Nike on the app. But first of all, why openness, why transparency, why is that a good match with thinking about sustainability and fashion? We at the centre have found that there's 5 different routes that we take through our work, and I know I've got only a 10-minute slot here, so I'm not going to go through them in detail. But when thinking about this evening, I reflected on these and thought, actually, all of these only work when you work in collaboration and cooperation with others. None of these can happen either in isolation with fashion as a discipline, or even with us as a university and thinking about how we work with others. So these guiding themes were something that Nike saw, the guys from Nike's Sustainable Innovation team, and they called us up and we got into conversation. And the conversation started really with this idea of we've got lots of information, we've got amazing connections over the last 10, 15 years. These connections have become absolutely incredible in all of our lives. And they're fantastic in many ways, but actually, what is this connection really doing for the design process? Are we finding that designers are working differently? Are designers feeling empowered by this idea of all of this connection and all of this information that is around us? Or actually, are they kind of feeling a little bit paralyzed? And Nike themselves have collected over the last 8 years, and I think it's £8 million of it's cost them to collect data on all of their materials that they use throughout their process. But this data was just kind of sitting there, and their design department weren't exactly knowing how to use it. We were talking to our designers, and we had all these booklets with lots of information, and for us it was really intriguing. But for the designers that we were working with and the courses we were working with, it was bombarding them. So the starting point, we felt, rather than just thinking, okay, how do we just make that data more accessible, we had to think about how could they trust that data? How could they think that there was a commitment to thinking very differently about what their ambition is as designers? It's no good just saying, yes, sustainability is important, we've got to think about the future, we've got to think about how we can all flourish, unless there's a very individual commitment on the role of everybody within a company, within a team, thinking about what it means to them personally. So those 3 words are very important to me when we're thinking about this idea of connection, because without trust, without a commitment, and without a real sense of care, they don't really do anything. And commitment comes when you kind of name something, and then when you say that this is what you're going to do and you write it down. And Nike have over the last few years made very big commitments about being able to make a difference and being able to show that they care. And this multiplier effect came into being by working with us, because they realised that by working with students, by working with designers, and by working with researchers, there was this sort of multiplier effect. Because instead of having a consensus, and this idea of connection doesn't necessarily mean collaboration. Sometimes it means fierce competition, but it does always mean that there's a sense of those conversations go in lots of different directions, and they multiply, and they create more questions. So we created a lot more questions, and those questions started with this idea of Nike saying to us, how can we continue to be successful without causing degradation to our natural environment? Because at the moment their business model is based on degradation to the natural environment, because they're making more stuff, using up more stuff, and using up very scarce resources in order to grow. They don't want to stop growing, but they want to stop being able to, they want to stop degrading nature. So That created lots of questions in the minds of the students, and I think probably the key to the collaboration was the fact that they listened to all of those questions, they listened to all of those confrontations, and they listened really well. And the result of that listening was that we developed a far more simple and straightforward way of thinking about how can a designer start to ask questions but be empowered to have greater decision making and make decisions that maybe expand possibility rather than restrict it. So the Making app has gone through a number of iterations over the last 18 months, starting with this idea of how do you take a lot of data and how do you make it expand a designer's possibility instead of restricting it. And the two elements of thinking about this information and knowledge that was so vital, and this idea of being able to try things out, test them, work and participate, and have all of the guys, we had 300 students initially involved, and then we drew it down to 30 who worked with us and went out to Portland with 150 people from Nike, NASA and American USAID to really think about what that could look like in a form that creates a conversation. So the Nike Making app isn't about an answer or a golden bullet of this is the thing you can use or not. It's a conversation starter. But without this idea of this sense of people actively participating and working together and creating a sense of trust over time, which comes through human relationships, that data is nothing. And I don't know whether I've got time to show the little film. Have I got time to show that? Good, okay, well I'll come back to it in a second then. So what that process means is that it can't ever stop. It has to be evolving, and the app has become or is becoming a little bit like the back of it is a bit like a wiki site. That it's now up there, it's downloadable on iTunes if anybody wants to have a look at it. I'm not going to use this time because it takes more than 10 minutes just to go through the app. But what you can do through these links actually, maybe, I wonder if I can open up this link. I don't know if I can from doing this on this PowerPoint here. If you go to nightmakers.com, you will see not only the process, thank you, it shows the process of how we went about creating this app and creating the stories behind it, but it also shows that behind it is the Sustainable Apparel Coalition's work. And anybody who downloads the app and wants to work with the app and has any questions, thoughts, any experiences of materials that they've used personally that they want to update the app with. In fact, this last week, the next iteration of the app has just been launched with feedback from all of the users over the last 6 months, trying it out, giving feedback, and that is the iterative process that it will continue to be. But without people actively participating, without that feedback loop of people constantly giving more information, having personal experience, that data will be static. So I suppose ultimately what I'm hoping to say really is this idea of data and openness and connectivity is nothing without the active participation of people actually connecting together to be able to keep it moving forward. It's been a great experience for us. I'm going to just show you a film that we made at the end of it that just sort of draws together the idea also of how everybody along the design cycle has a part to play.
Make no mistake, we hate sustainability. We hate that people don't even want to hear the word anymore. We hate that it has become a management decision that gets passed down like secondhand shoes. We're over it. We're here to unveil a new age of design. One that is about making better things and making things better. One that is built upon an insatiable curiosity and inexhaustible work ethic. One that gives the power back to the makers of things instead of makers of decisions. This is about better choices for better tomorrows. It's about opportunities, not obstacles, options, not mandates. We're talking about transparency, not confusion. This is about potential, to do things you never thought you could with things that you've always had. It's about time the do-gooders took heed from the good doers. So consider this your rallying cry. Reclaim your rightful positions as catalysts of progress. Rise up against the pencil pushers with unworked hands and uncurious minds. Go to your drawing boards and draft tables and workstations. Prepare to design things that matter. Prepare to change the way the world makes things. Prepare to redesign the making of making. Makers of the world, unite.
Please do download the app. Have a look at it, give some feedback to the Nike guys, and all of the stories as well of the products that we designed and developed are all on the Centre for Sustainable Fashion's website as well, so do check those out and give us any feedback as well. Thank you.